How are we doing, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. 5 days in a row, man. I'm liking the flow here. With me today, my good friend, Mr. Idris Salam, out in North Carolina. How you doing, boss?
All right, yeah, we got to get you put you on syndication, man, every day. Shoot, hey, y'all hear that? Syndication, Richie Hicks Jr. Podcast.
We're getting there. Today we're going to speak on Doc Rivers being out of Philadelphia. Somehow last night on the show with Zappy, it slipped our mind to speak on it, and it kind of works out for the better because we can talk about it today. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about one of his players wanting out of Philly all of a sudden. Shocker there. We're going to hit on the NBA playoffs and our thoughts. We also want to speak on the parity, or maybe lack thereof, in Major League Baseball. Is it too top-heavy? And we're going to speak about Idris' show, The Mixed Experience. We're going to start this up here with Doc Rivers. Doc is out. Is this another example of not being held to a more accountable standard? And I'm going to let you start on that, Idris.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was just my phone. Oh, you mean answer that? Yeah, I think I mean, Doc is Doc. You know, he has his history. You know, blowing 7-game series. You know, being 3-1, being up 3-2, and you know, he deserves blame in this. But in this case, I gotta say it's a little bit different. People say, yeah, the only thing he runs is the pick and roll, but it's been working. I think you have to now hold the players accountable for this situation because you're up 3-2, you're going back home, you got the momentum. James Harden's dropping 40 points, Embiid's dropping 25 plus each game. Maxi's doing his thing. The whole team is playing, but then come game 6, James Harden does what he does. He disappears.
Yes, he has a terrible habit of that.
It comes game 7. Not only does he disappear, he doesn't show up I would say not even show up at the arena. This man is the worst 3-point shooter in game 7s in NBA history. This is a guy who once averaged 37 points for a season. He led the league in assists this year, but you can only muster 9 points in the biggest game. Joel Embiid, 15 points. Combined, they scored 20.
And that's your league MVP.
That's your league MVP.
But somehow we're going to blame this on the coach.
Right. You got to put on the players.
This time, yeah.
Show up.
And I'm not absolving Doc's record.
Right.
I'm not absolving Doc of just not getting it done in a lot of game 7s or times where he leads 2-1 or 3-2. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even saying that the coaching change wasn't necessary, but I believe that when you combine the crappy comments, the crappy take from Joel Embiid, putting all his players under the bus,
yeah,
you combine that with James Harden, who minutes before we went live, Zappy hit me with an article that James Harden wants out of Philly. He wants to look for a long-term deal. And this is a guy throughout his career that has shown literally no loyalty to any organization that has ever employed him.
Right.
Going back to OKC, the Rockets, Brooklyn.
Yep.
Pretty soon a Harden Brooklyn jersey is going to be a throwback, and he was there this year.
You know, the funny thing about him is, and I get a lot of heat from Houston fans who still follow James Harden. I don't like his game, and I'm going to tell you why. Great shooter, all that. But here's a guy, and I don't care what Houston fans say, this guy looks for the flop on every jump shot. You touch him or come near him, he's falling out like some little child who didn't get his way. Every time. It makes it hard. That's why I'm so glad they put that rule in a few years ago about how people, if they do certain things, they're not going to call a foul. This guy does that all of the time.
And he made a living of that.
Shots. And it's sickening because it's like, are you looking to score or are you looking to get bailed out? And he wanted out of Houston. He wanted out of Brooklyn. Now, I think the long-term deal in Philly, I think he wants out because they know he knows he's not going to get it.
No.
Because they're not going for that nonsense anymore. Look, and switching back to Doc, No, not so, I'm gonna say MB. MB's comments. He's had stuff to say about Olajuwon and those NBA centers in the past. He's always chirping, but I tell people he's the constant from before Doc Rivers got there. He's still, and they have not succeeded under this guy. He's a great center, but he's not. I would take Jokic and Giannis over him anytime. Reason being, because I know I'm gonna get 40 minutes. They're showing up for work. They're playing like a center. They're doing whatever they got to do to win the game. And you know what? They're not doing all this chirping. And we see who the real MVP is right now.
Yeah,
we see him right now.
Working a triple-double last night. Lakers made some good adjustments.
Yeah.
Game 2 is going to be really good because I think the Lakers, even though they lost, I said it on last night's show, I think they gained a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
And, back to Harden for a second. This is a very frustrating thing for a viewer because the only message that keeps ringing clear, and it's not just about players not being loyal to teams. There could be a million ways to spin that. I'm talking about accountability even when we look at the John Morant thing.
Right.
When you look at just how so many of these ball players have become sensitive babies. You look at KD. You can't criticize that guy. In the old days, it used to be just leave my family and my personal shit alone. But you could talk to me about the game. You can't even talk to some of these guys about the game.
Yeah, you know what? It goes with today's society. And with some of the fans, they're so connected with these players. Oh, it's like how they go at Stephen A. Smith. Oh, he never played the game. He ain't got no reason to say anything. This guy works for a sports network. This is what he does. This is his job. So you're going to say he can't comment on KD? And with James Harden, this guy, he's soft. If it was, he'll be a Hall of Famer one day because he scored a lot. But I wouldn't take him in New York. I know we got holes. He can shoot his ass off. I wouldn't take him in New York because
he already proved. He already proved it in Brooklyn because I'm not necessarily saying that I think less of him as a player if he's not the main guy when you have a big three, because he was never the main guy when you had other guys around him. To your point about the flopping, a big part of his game earlier in his career was getting to the line. That speaks for some of that scoring average.
Right.
But I just think a bigger problem and a bigger thing that we're seeing is that I get it. Doc Rivers might not be the best guy to defend. But the one thing that holds true is that you cannot be accountable as a player. You can talk all the shit in the world, come up short, and it just seems like whoever's coaching you is going to get the ultimate blame. And there has to be a happy medium with some of this because, I'm more in favor of a guy like Tibbs getting canned, who I actually really like as a Knick fan, because quite frankly, I don't think that he has what it takes to get them to the next level. I looked at some of his coaching, sticking with RJ Barrett too long, refusing to even consider putting Derrick Rose or Evan Fournier back into the mix when our shooting was terrible, where our ball handling was terrible outside of Brunson. You put in D Rose, he's not going to turn the ball over. He's not going to lose you the game. That was my biggest cry during that series.
He's going to manage it.
Absolutely. And I think his inability or his unwillingness to make adjustments, that could warrant getting fired more so than anything I've seen with Doc, anything I've seen with Monty Williams. But the one thing that holds true is when you look at these guys' rosters, you got a guy like Randall, another baby. You got KD. That dude is never happy. That dude is always crying about something. And the bottom line is, even tracking him back to OKC, his biggest games of his career, he comes up small. Game 7 against the Warriors, after allowing them to come back while being up 3-1, he comes up small in Game 7, and then he joins the Warriors.
These players today, and people say, "Oh, you're old guys." No, these players today are coddled. They are soft. Period. They are soft. You can't say nothing to them. You can't. It's nothing. They don't like criticism. They don't like nothing. Oh, that's that old man energy. But when we came up, and now we're the OGs. When we came up, we had heat from our elders. But you know what we did? We took it in. we might have been like, man, I'm getting tired of this. But we took that in and it made us better to where these guys today, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
They
it's
don't want to
wild,
hear
man.
it. They want
It's
you
wild.
to say, oh, we're great. We're this. They don't want you to hear it, dude. Your shit's whack. You need to get better. They don't want to hear that.
Yeah, because I mean, for every Kobe Bryant or every LeBron James who is undeniably generational winner, generational talent, you take it back to Duncan, you take it back to Shaquille, 90s. We don't even have to name those guys. We know who they are. Point to be made is like, I feel that it's too much instant gratification and putting guys on pedestals that they haven't earned. You know, because the ultimate statistic is winning. And as much as we love to have fun with these LeBron and Jordan debates, one thing that I have said on many a show lately is that LeBron's legacy is a lot more airtight than any of these other guys I'm speaking of.
Oh, yeah. If I had to go, like I say with AD, not a Hall of Famer. Great player, but he hasn't earned it. Only reason KD gets in there, in my opinion, is because the shooting and he winning in Golden State.
He is a generational scorer. I'm going to give him that one. He may very well be the greatest pure scorer since Michael Jordan. I think that's actually a logical argument. My issue with him is that he's been on loaded rosters and doesn't have enough to show for it. Say what you want about LeBron, and I've said this to Zappy on this show. I think this current Laker team is the best balance, 1 through 15, 1 through 12, that LeBron has ever had.
You know what? I got into it with a LeBron fan at work. I posted the screenshot on Facebook. This is what I told him. I said, I felt LeBron's greatest achievement was 2007 when he took that team. They got swept by the Spurs.
Right.
He carried that team in his third year.
Yeah, and a lot of guys that never really amounted to much in other situations.
That was his.
The only one that you could even make a case for as being a good player would be Ilgauskas.
Yeah,
but the other guys, no sir.
Their names, I forgot them.
Anderson Varejao, I remember him, but
Varejao,
there wasn't much on that team. Delonte West, there's not much on that team that you're gonna do a backflip over. He had a horrific roster when you really think about it. I had this argument with Zappy the other night. Not that I'm into the business of defending LeBron, but playing devil's advocate. Zappy made a good point back to me. He said, yeah, you're right. He never had the coaching of a Kobe or a Jordan or some other players. But he never allowed that to happen because he always left.
Hold on. Before you go further, that's the issue I have when they mention Phil. I always ask people, what was Phil Jackson's record before he started coaching the Bulls? 0-0. I say Phil became a great coach. Because
he took over a team that Doug Collins couldn't get over the top.
Right.
Similar to what he did in LA, a team that Del Harris couldn't get over the top.
Right. I think he was a good manager of personality to say, look, we can win. And he had Tex Winter with that triangle.
Yes.
That's why I say him and Jordan became great together.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree with you saying about LeBron. Yeah, he never had, but he kept leaving.
I think the best coaching job Phil ever did, if we're going to be totally honest, was the year that Jordan retired and they took the Knicks to 7 games.
Yeah.
Led by Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. I think that was the best coaching job of Phil's career, even though it's a lot of fans will literally forget that season.
I would give Spoelstra a great coach label. I mean, he had a team, he rebuilt that. He basically rebuilt that Miami Heat team, and he's still there. Yeah,
with the blessing of Pat Riley. And basically, the point I'm making about LeBron that Zappy made back to me is that Spoelstra could have been LeBron's great coach.
Yeah.
But LeBron never stayed anywhere too long.
Right.
He wanted to go to LA for a ton of reasons. I will give him credit for going back to Cleveland. I think that he helped do himself a favor in terms of image repair.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But as far as having the coaching of the other guys, I will say no, he hasn't. But he is part of the reason why that didn't happen. And oddly enough, we could be looking at a situation in just a week or so where he is facing down his former coach in a real fan-driven scenario, not like in the Disney World Championship.
Yeah. If I say with this Lakers team, I'll say this is. I'm not going to put it all on him saying this is his best work because they went over 500 while he was hurt.
Right.
But I'll say this is probably one of the best example of leadership he's had.
I tend to agree because I think it's an age thing. I think it's a maturity thing. And I also think it's a being a little more healthy thing because if you look at his numbers during the season, the numbers are excellent, actually quite phenomenal for his age.
Yeah.
But he played less than 50 games.
Right.
I think that this is similar to what Golden State did. In these playoffs, you see it with Miami too. Teams are more worried about being healthy and right than going over the top and making sure that they get the 1 seed because they believe that their rosters, even in non-home favorite situations, can beat the top-tier teams. And for the most part, it's been proven in these playoffs. I mean, just because the Lakers lost last night does not mean that they can't win that series. If you look at the second half of last night's game, they're the ones with the momentum, even though they lost the game.
Yeah, when they put Rui on Jokic, things changed.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can carry that over because if the Lakers steal one in Denver, I think they're going to win the series.
We got a series.
I think they're going to win the series. I picked the Lakers in 6. Zappy picked the Nuggets in 7. But it's going to be
6, man. I think the Nuggets will tire them out because the Lakers have been going through. They've been, that Golden State game. They beat Golden State in 6 games, but Golden State, they put some wear and tear on them, man.
No, for sure. And it's going to happen because that's a team that lives and dies by the 3. They're going to run you up and down the court. And, a couple of those games, shoot, if game 1 goes differently, maybe Golden State wins that series.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like anything else, moot point. We could say the same thing about the Knicks. And I do want to speak on that series. It starts tonight. What is your prediction and your thoughts on the Celtics versus the Heat?
The Celtics played ball like the Knicks. I mean, that's the Heat played ball like the Knicks played. They the way the Celtics has been playing, they look like they can run you, but then they look like they don't even belong there.
It's been a mixed bag going back to the Atlanta series.
To where the Heat, win or lose, they look like you're gonna have to fight us.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. That's a fair statement.
I think Boston has more because they're longer. They got more.
They definitely got a more talented team if you really want to get into resumes. I'm going to give them that.
When I say Jalen and not Jalen, Jason Tatum and
Jaylen Brown?
No, for the Heat.
Butler. Oh, you're talking about Bam okay.
Butler.
Oh, Jimmy. Okay.
Butler's coming every night. Tatum, now Jaylen Brown, I think he's more like the Superman over Jason Tatum. Bam, you wow.
I think Bam is going to give Tatum a lot of issues where he could potentially take him out of some of the finer parts of his game.
I'm gonna say Boston 7, but I got a feeling Miami's gonna take this, man.
I say logically we're supposed to say Boston in 7, but I'm actually with you. I'm taking Miami in 6.
That was my choice.
I think Miami wins one of the first 2 games in Boston.
Yeah.
And that's going to be similar to my take on the Lakers. They're going to win one of the first 2. It wasn't yesterday.
Yeah.
I got them both winning in 6. I think that's one thing that I really had to stress, and I've been stressing it on the show.
Mm-hmm.
You said at the beginning of your point that in a lot of ways Miami plays like the Knicks. And I do agree, but my biggest disagreement on that is that they play a more disciplined level of what the Knicks do. And that goes to coaching. Zappy made some good points on this show about how Spoelstra has a history of out-coaching Thibodeau head-to-head going back to when Chicago and the Miami Heat were clashing with each other back in the prime of the Derrick Rose era. Mm-hmm. But it's more than that. You have to enhance your personnel because year to year, you're not always going to have the most talented team. And I think that's what Eric Spoelstra has done in these playoffs better than anyone else. is that he has enhanced the ability of role players to take bigger roles, and he can feel comfortable with Jimmy letting the game come to him. The biggest compliment I give to Jimmy Butler, he doesn't take bad shots, and he literally lets the game come to him, and he paces himself to when it's time to be playoff Jimmy. He's been doing that.
Yeah, I was talking about how Miami is like the Knicks because they match up well against Boston. We matched up
for sure.
We matched up well against Boston.
That was the tragedy about not making it against Boston. Yes. I think we would have beat them.
Yeah. But the difference is the coach.
Yes, it matters. This time
knows like, okay, we gotta. Spoelstra will adjust on the fly. Like, look, okay, they're beating our ass.
I mean, you look at it from the bigger picture. He's an understudy of Pat Riley,
and he does the same thing.
Yeah. In Miami, I hate that organization, but like anything else, I got to be fair. I got to be objective when I do this podcast. And one thing I must admit is that when you look at Pat Riley going to Miami, we had a short bit of success over them with Van Gundy versus Riley head to head. But if you extract those 3 or 4 seasons, maybe 5 seasons, Miami has been the better organization.
Yeah,
it goes without saying, because even when they broke up that big 3, they were still a good team.
I'm glad we had Van Gundy because I think he's the only coach that would have been able to go up against Riley.
Yes,
he had the same mentality. Like, look here, Pat, you ain't beating our ass.
Right.
He had the same mentality. Nah, you're not coming in our house.
We replaced we replaced Armani with members only, but he still got it done.
Members only, the last member.
The last fucking member.
Shout out to who.
Yes, sir. But we got also Mickey Donovan of Ray Donovan fame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually where it was quoted from. I re-quoted it when I was having some fun with a family member. But no, for sure, man. Van Gundy had his place, but that is such a stressful job.
Yeah. And
that's part of the reason why Riley's upstairs right now.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why Phil took a crack at being upstairs.
Yeah.
And it's the reason why, a guy like Spoelstra is a veteran, but he's still super young in the grander scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good situation he has there. Pat Riley really cultivated him into a great coach. And I think when it's all said and done, you could make an argument that Spoelstra might have a better resume than the guy who mentored him, because let's not forget, as good as Pat Riley is, he didn't win in New York. He got him close. He tried to reform them into the bad boy Pistons because he didn't have the talent. But in LA, yes, he won. A lot of things went in his favor to be able to win.
Yeah.
But, you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, and Magic Johnson. You better fucking win.
Kurt Rambis, Norm Nixon. We can go down the line.
Yeah, they had a good squad. And I got to say, man, I love that HBO show about the Showtime Lakers.
I can't wait. Show.
I can't wait for season 2.
Now, I finally watched that straight through. I was like, wow, it's a good show. I binged it. Took me a whole day and a half, but I binged it.
And while we're talking about great shows, I did want to make a mention, and this is on the fly because it wasn't something I thought of until this very moment. But I have a must-watch for sports fans on Amazon Prime. It's Reggie Jackson. It's titled Reggie. I'll put it to you like this. Before my time, because Reggie didn't play in the era that I was born, but being a Yankee fan and growing up the way I grew up, I knew a lot about him. So I'll paint a picture, give an example. Whenever I'm trying to get into something, if it's somebody that's a controversial figure, maybe someone that I might not like at the core of their personality, I try to go in with an open mind.
Yeah.
I'll give you 2 examples. I got my father and I got my stepdad, Eddie. Shout out to both of them. Guys that explained the history and game of baseball in 2 completely different ways, or the ways that they saw it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is my father, being a Munson fan, most definitely did not have the best opinion of Reggie Jackson. But he would be the first to tell you how great he was. Now, you take my stepdad, for instance, being from the South Bronx, being Puerto Rican, because a lot of things that people forget is that Reggie is half Puerto Rican. Reginald Martinez Jackson.
Yep.
What I found intriguing about this whole thing is that when I was done going in there with an open mind, I tended to kind of lean more towards my stepdad's train of thought when looking at the body of work for Reggie Jackson being the polarizing figure that he was. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that what I enjoyed about this is that I really think it opened up a lot of eyes, because when you think about racism in Major League Baseball, you're not necessarily thinking about the Reggie Jackson era. I mean, you'll think about Satchel Paige not being able to come over. You'll think about Jackie Robinson, Larry Doby, the pioneers for African-American players to get into the league.
Shouts out to Larry Doby. People don't realize the contribution he put in.
For sure. You take a guy like Roberto Clemente, Figueroa from the Yankees, two of the first representatives for Puerto Ricans.
Yeah.
But the truth in the matter that I'm getting at is that I guess before watching this, I never truly absorbed or realized how this affected Reggie in terms of his life and the way that he moves even now. And he did make a good point about why he left the Yankees to go to the hated Astros. Quite frankly, I think he felt that the newer age Steinbrenner did not give him or value his opinions or give him the same layer of respect that the boss did.
Yeah.
The boss really loved Reggie. The boss could be a hard ass, but I also think that he was a complicated guy, because you even look at like Doc Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, when they were having their issues with drugs, more so Strawberry with the Yankees. George did not give two shits about if they played baseball. He wanted to make sure those guys were going to be all right. George was a complicated guy. I mean, of course, the Dave Winfield thing is not something that he's going to be remembered for in a good light. Might be the reason why he never makes the Hall of Fame. Yeah. But when I think about getting back to Reggie, it's definitely worth a watch. And one thing that I find interesting is that, you know how we talk about the media now?
Yeah.
It hasn't changed that much when covering sports if you take it back there, because the infamous straw that stirs the drink comment was actually coin phrased by the media because Reggie basically said, this team has a lot of great ingredients. Maybe I could be the straw. Yeah. I don't think he was trying to take a shit on Munson being the captain or any of that, but the media ran 7 miles with it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I never realized is that Thurman Munson is responsible for Reggie Jackson being called Mr. October. I never knew that.
I remember the Reggie era. I was young, but that's when I was really starting to understand baseball. I like Munson because who didn't like Thurman Munson,
Yeah.
And I like Reggie because of what he did. And,
the guy played in the highest pressure situations. Can't deny it.
I can remember the stuff about him vaguely. Like I said, because I was like 13. I can't remember. I might have been 12. I might be younger than that. I was young, and I heard a little bit. My uncle used to tell me stuff. And I'm like, okay, and I can tell a lot of stuff that he went through, and I was like, wow. And then later in years, you see how things, I mean, I felt he was the type, he knew what he can do, and he was like, because I hadn't seen the documentary, but the impression I got of him back then was he knew what he can do, and he was confident in what he can do.
Yes,
and he was like, look. We're going to do this. Mickey Rivers, the whole crew. And
right.
I think he got a bad record back then, being black and saying certain things, be seen as arrogant and stuff like that, to where now, people can really talk about, I know what I can do. But back then, watch your mouth. So I think he got a raw deal. I said, I never had an issue with either one. I liked them both. I cried when Thurman Munson died. I happened to come home from school, man, and turn the TV on, and it was showing the wreckage. And I'm looking at it, but I didn't know what happened until it came across Thurman Munson catch up. I was like, and I sat there, and my mother like, what's going on? I said, Thurman Munson died. Because she's a Yankee fan, She said, really? I said, yeah. And she said, I didn't know what was going on because she was in the kitchen.
Right.
She said, oh, I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, it's crazy how that happened. The only active captain of the Yankees while being the captain that passed away, that's my father's favorite player. I got it like literally across from me, an iconic Thurman Munson picture, and I got my dad's picture inside that picture.
Yeah.
You know, that was his guy for sure. My guy happened to be Mattingly, the next notable captain. In between, it was Guidry and Randolph. But
I was a Mickey Rivers fan.
A lot of people were Mickey Rivers fans in that era.
I love Mickey.
He had a lot of personality. But what I find interesting about all of this and just coming full circle with it is that I think the one thing I take away from this is that we still have to do better. That goes without saying. And I think another thing is that what I learned with Reggie is that I think that his way to deal with what he dealt with during that era, because him and Billy Martin, they got to the point of toxic.
Yeah.
Was to be the most eloquent person in the room. And I think that society wasn't necessarily ready for that, because when you're talking about an athlete, society was kind of pre-programmed to just say these guys dunk basketballs or shoot threes, or these guys hit home runs, these guys tackle quarterbacks. I don't think America was ready for a guy that was intelligent, as to say in that era, because you know you're spanning it out different years, and Ali or a Reggie Jackson for that matter. I guess my ultimate feedback here is my opinion has actually changed for the better when thinking about Reggie Jackson, because one thing that I didn't like about just game film with him was the infamous fight in Boston when it looked like he was kind of hot dogging.
Yeah.
But after seeing like the true thickness of the Billy Martin Reggie Jackson thing, I think George had a lot to do with that too.
Yeah, George had a lot to do with it.
Because George damn near fired Billy when him and Reggie were getting after it. Because he's like, he's still the player, bro. You're supposed to lead. And you got little Billy Martin over here trying to step to Reggie. It was wild. George
lit fires that people didn't realize. I didn't realize that till I got old. I was like, okay.
They kind of alluded to it in The Bronx is Burning.
Yeah.
When George was like, what kind of representation is this for my team? Because, you know, like perception was reality when it came to George.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't always do everything right either. I mean, that was a madhouse. When you look at like the times in the country, you had the Son of Sam out there, all this crazy shit. And to think that such a diverse team was able to put it all together at the right time, they're one of the most polarizing teams, not necessarily the best, but polarizing teams just because of like the worth of like so many diverse personalities.
That's why I always felt, and I don't want to deviate from the conversation, that's why I would like to see a show that highlighted the most, I guess, controversial teams in sport.
That would be a good idea. I mean, obviously, we can't go too far without mentioning Kobe and Shaq.
Yeah, you got Kobe and Shaq. You got that Yankee squad. What's that?
That
of course, the Bad Boy Pistons.
The 86 Mets. They had some characters.
I was talking about the 86 Mets,
86 Mets would be a cool team to talk about.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you know, never ending. I mean, shoot, even those Reds teams with Rose and Joe Morgan and Johnny Bench. That would be a cool. You know what? You just planted a good idea in my head. We're going to look into that.
Man.
Dude.
Put that on the list. The most polarizing teams in sports history, the top 10 or top 5.
That's going to be a lot of fun because I have a feeling that we're going to take a legit detour and be stuck for a while with the 80s Lakers and Celtics. Not to mention, dude, the Bad Boy Pistons.
Yeah.
You got the Knicks of the 90s who had their share of characters.
Knicks of the Heat.
And that could start another show for best fights.
That's going to take a couple of shows. That'll take a couple of shows.
You got Jeff Van Gundy getting dragged like a kid by a lot.
Yeah.
Those series.
Van Gundy, man. I still like him now, even as an announcer, because I find when I listen to him do games, it's like Mark Jackson is always for the play. No, that was a foul. And Van Gundy, no, man, that's not a foul.
And he coached them too, which even makes it more funny.
Yeah.
So it's like they're bickering still with each other. I respect both men in different ways, but I will say this, and something that you put on your personal page that I have to acknowledge and agree with. I love Mark Jackson, always have, and I think he's a great man. I really do.
Yeah.
But if Mark Jackson wants back in the NBA, he has to loosen up, to your point, on pushing his religious beliefs on others.
Right.
got to live and let live. But if he wants to teach some lessons, all in the while continuing to teach and the game of basketball, by all means, because, you know, not to get on religion and really divert it, there's a lot of moral messages that you can make without having to make it about religion.
Right.
And I'm not knocking anyone that believes in the word of any prophet or any spiritual leader, because at the end of the day, the hope is that it's all for the betterment of you as on the human whole.
Right.
And, you know, I've been exposed to some of my churches, one and the same as going to black churches when I was a kid too, because I had black friends that would go to the black churches, and that was my first experience of seeing that angle of it. So, you know, just want to make that clear. Moving it along, I know that you have a show that I wanted to give a chance for you to shout out here and explain to our viewers what this is about. It's called The Mixed Experience.
Yeah. Bosco from the Bronx. That's my alter ego, The Mixgician. 68 on handradio.org, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time on handradio.org. I play old school hip hop, R&B, funk, soul, house music. I play music for the soul. I don't play none of the nonsense. I play music for the soul. It's free.
That's where we can see it. Handradio.org.
Handradio.org. Yep.
All right.
It's in the family of the trio, the Richie Hicks Jr. podcast. And that's every day. The Richie, so y'all don't forget, stay tuned, because Richie drops them every day almost.
But when I play hooky from work, that's definitely when I
he's trying to get that out there, yo. He's trying to get that sports out there. So
and I definitely have been playing hooky from work. Got a little bit of a nasal thing going on, but reality is, you know, sometimes we just need a little mental break, and I think that's really what this one's about. Handradio.org, The Mixed Experience.
Yeah, it's just good music. Listen to on your way home from work, you know. Yeah, but that's what we do, man.
Speaking of music, I did want to make a mention to our viewers. We're going to be doing another hip hop show. I'm going to pull up the date right now. Just bear with me. Look for us on May 31st at 7 p.m. Good friend of the show, Zay, is going to be joining us, as well as one of the new and up-and-coming artists, my personal friend, Bird from work. Just such a talented person. And, you know, I think she's great, quite frankly. I think she's great. I look forward to bringing her on the show. I'm sure Idris is going to be joining us before he does his work over on Casual Convo. And we're going to have a lot of fun on that.
Say what?
We're going to have a lot of fun on that. That one of my favorite shows, probably dating back to about a year ago, was when we did that show with Zay. That was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
We were able to touch on so many topics that we didn't even necessarily plan for. And, you know, I'm a huge fan of hip hop, huge fan of old school R&B. It's kind of like on the R&B side of things. Yeah. I know you relate to this. I almost feel like that has kind of died off a little.
Yeah.
It's not the same, man.
Well, see, you know, the R&B that we grew up on, even the R&B my mother grew up on, it was like I said, it's feel good music. Like in the 90s, you know, we had New Jack Swing, stuff that gets your body pumping, like, yeah, you know, you was cool. But to it now, and this, you know, these guys are making their money, they're successful, more power to them. But I think and we should be talking about this on the music show, but anyway.
Oh, don't worry, we will.
I think with the new guys, they went from being lovers to where they want to be gangsters, and it's just the soul in the music is not there anymore.
You're gonna laugh at my take on this, and I'm sure you're gonna agree, which makes it even more funny. I understand that you're trying to sell your personality or something an image that you want fans to hold on to. And I understand that. I completely understand that. We even liken this to what Ja's been doing and the tragic murder of my favorite artist at the time, Tupac Shakur. You said you cried when Munson died. I cried when Tupac died. But to put it in perspective about all of the image stuff, I used to always clown on G-Unit. And don't get me wrong, I love G-Unit.
Yeah. But
I used to say, bro, you know the best part about all this? Joe is the hardest dude out of all of them, and he's the R&B guy.
Yep.
Well, MC Hammer. Everybody want to make fun of MC Hammer. All his music's pop because what killed the MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, that kind of artist vibe was that NWA was like 2 inches away.
Yeah.
And then they went mainstream, and I said it on that other show, Nothing But a G Thing, Dr. Dre and Snoop on the Chronic album.
Yep.
That literally changed the landscape forever of how music videos were, and rap jumped rock on that day, and it never really changed.
Yep.
It never really changed after that.
I'm gonna speak on the job thing anyway. And this is really going out to the black community. Stop enabling him. I've heard a lot of guys just say, yeah, well, it's because it is. One guy even compared it to slavery, said, well, slavery was once legal too. I'm like, that, to get to the question of, okay, yes, he has a right to carry.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Right, and there's no law against carrying your pistol. Well,
right.
in Tennessee. However, you do have a moral thing. People fail to realize when you work for a company, a private company, they have code of conduct.
And technically, you're a contractor, similar to if you're a pro wrestler.
Like I work for Marriott, and there's some things, I gotta watch myself. You have a contract, and it says you can do this, you can't do it. You represent the company. You represent the company. You represent the company. If you're holding a gun and you're waving it around and you throwing up gang signs, you are a misrepresentation of the company.
And if you get
what they want to do with you,
and if you get the most ignorant, sideways opinion of what an NBA player is,
right?
But the first person that sees John Morant is going to run with that narrative. I'm like, bro, it's one that you literally put in the hand of somebody that might not like you for other reasons.
When a guy had said, I had compared, this is what I said. I said, Tupac wasn't a gangster. He said he wasn't a gangster.
No.
I said, but what got him killed was doing gangster stuff. I said, John Morant, or a Crip already told John Morant he better chill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, you cannot do this. I said, in the climate right now, we got shootings in Tennessee. What's the kid that got killed? Young Dolph got killed in his hometown.
Yeah, that was awful.
You got the stuff in Chicago. The last thing we need to see on TV as a black athlete waving a gun. And if you're a real smart gun owner, no gun owner puts a gun and faces it puts the barrel facing himself, which like he did in the car. You don't.
Yeah, that's wild.
Because at any time,
you can slip, you can hit a bump. There's so many things that can go sideways with something like that. And I don't know, man. It's like you go expanding on this topic, and it's like it's way past tag-alongs. I think we are all in agreement on that. This is a John Morant thing. This is a mental health thing. This is something that needs to be handled, because quite frankly, the NBA is way past. Can you imagine if David Stern was still the commissioner as opposed to Adam Silver?
Oh, he'd have been suspended.
Bro, he would have been done already.
He'd been done.
And I'm not taking a crap on Adam Silver. I'm just saying that David Stern was that dude.
Yeah, he was like, no, I'm not. You're not gonna tarnish the shield.
Oh, I mean, bro, like even like and I've said this on many a show lately, like with the Michael Jordan suspension.
Yeah.
I don't call it a retirement. I call it a suspension.
Yeah.
I think you got to be a little delusional if you think that he wasn't sort of suspended.
Yeah.
I think that there was just too much negativity around Michael Jordan at the time. And when you're Nike's poster boy, when you're the global poster boy for the NBA, not just in this country, every kid in America wants to be you with the gambling, with some of the other things. I think that Stern literally wanted him to just kind of disappear for a little while, make people miss you.
Yep, just chill.
Yeah, make people kind of miss you.
Unless you got something to speak on.
No, go ahead.
Another thing I want to speak on, and I mentioned this on the Casual Convo show, is the pay discrepancies with the WNBA, because I still hear people saying With that, let me explain to those who keep saying it's misogynist for me to say what I'm saying about the pay discrepancy. The NBA players play 82 games a season.
Yes, sir.
The women were playing 20-something games.
A third of that.
A third of it. Right then, you should not get paid what the men getting paid. They're doing 3 times as much work. Now they extended to 40 games, which is still not even half of what the NBA players play. And when you talk about the NBA playoffs, you guys playing 7 games at some time to where the women play 2 out of 3. So still you're playing half.
That's like infancy NBA stuff. Back in the old days before we were both even thought of.
Yeah, you played 2 out of 3, and it was 3 out of 5, and went straight up 4.
They changed it in the 2000s, yeah.
So that's another thing. You're not filling these stadiums. You can't say men. There are no women in those stadiums. This
opened up a conversation that we bled into when we were talking about the Brittany Griner stuff. The reality is that a lot of women will get tight on social media about this, but I ask myself, are you supporting the league that you're complaining about? My mother used to go to all the Orlando Miracle games with her friends from US Air back in the day when they were in Orlando. She was a season ticket holder. She knew some of the players on a personal level. Then they moved out of town. But my question is this. If you're not supporting that league, but going to bitch about what they're making, you're part of the problem.
They generated $60 million.
Right.
The operation cost came out to $70 million.
Dude, the NBA takes that as like a write-off.
They've been supporting the league for 20 years.
That's all NBA. The NBA literally
money.
Yes.
And they say, no, it's a women's sport. It's not women's sports. It's a women's sport because women's UFC will pack a stadium.
Absolutely.
Women's boxing will pack a stadium. Women's hockey, all these sports.
I mean, especially when you had like the likes of a Layla Ali.
Yes.
Who was giving you 2 different sides of it. In addition to being a superior athlete, she was a beautiful woman.
They don't have that athlete who's out there. Layla push boxing. She was out there doing
absolutely.
Everything.
You look at soccer, Mia Hamm.
They were pushing the sport to where people like either they came to see them to win or
look at LSU. Look at the rivalry of 2 phenomenal stars in the NCAA tournament for the women. That was one of the best rivalries that the tournament, and I'm talking about both tournaments, men and women combined. I mean, they were talking about that like being the women's version of Bird and Magic.
And see, that's the thing, man. Those girls in the collegiate, they push that. They push that. Caitlin Clark on Iowa,
yeah, for sure.
And Angel Reese. I mean, Caitlin Clark with this, yeah. But you know what? She bought some stuff to the game to where people say, "I want to watch this girl play."
And the most important thing about that,
watch or lose, but they were coming to watch the game.
And the most important thing about that nonsense is that Caitlin Clark literally had no issue with her. They wanted to turn it into like something that it was, and I'm like, guys, you can't play it. You can't play at this level, but then complain that you're playing it emotionally. Like there has to be a happy medium. You can't do that.
And I respect Caitlin Clark because even with defeat, she was like, they
handled it. I thought both women handled it like bosses.
Yeah, they didn't go at each other. They was like, yeah, it's competition.
Because there's a lot of respect there, and that's what these knuckleheads don't understand.
If you want the sport to grow, you need to support it. Every female sport is thriving except for the WNBA because you don't have that one marquee player who's out there in the forefront. Yeah, what's up? You got all the different players out there doing things, but nobody know who these players are.
For sure, bro. And even if you go back to the men's side of things, we'll keep it on the same sport to make the analogy. Mm-hmm. We've seen Michael Jordan dunk on Dikembe Mutombo and do the finger whap. There's a lot of respect between those two. There's a lot of love between those two. Or you even take Michael Jordan and Patrick Ewing that on your tube, they're enemies, but they're eating dinner after the game together, and they have been lifelong friends going back to their contributions for 2 different runs on Team USA, and they're always going to be linked in NCAA history together.
Always, yeah.
I mean, Jordan almost got Ewing to go to North Carolina.
Yeah.
The biggest reason why Ewing did not go to North Carolina is because Ewing felt that North Carolina at the time was very much backwards in terms of him being treated fairly because of the tone of his skin. He had a horrible experience. A lot of people don't know this about Patrick Ewing, and I actually found this out the day the Knicks traded him because I was reading the paper about a bad experience Pat had as a member of a high school team in Cambridge.
In Cambridge,
That a brick went through the window.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, dude. That will stick with a person, no matter how big and bad he is, no matter being one of the top 50 NBA players. Now it's top 75. There are certain scars that will stick with different people for different reasons, and that's resonating with me again. Like I said on Why This Reggie Jackson show, I thought was so important to check out.
And see, people talked about his speech, but they forgot he was Jamaican.
Yes, sir.
And he still spoke with that accent, and he would watch his speech, so he would speak. People understood him. They were like, I can remember the signs they had. People when he was in Georgetown, when he would go up to Massachusetts and play one, they would have sign like, "Can you read this?" Like D.I. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, to try to play it off like if having an accent makes you dumb.
Yeah, I was like, and see, as time went on, he kind of lost his accent.
Right.
But it's like, and before we close, because we're getting close to that time. See, man, I love this show.
Yeah, this was cool, and I didn't really have any plan of where these combos are going. I just knew.
Okay. And Diana Taurasi, who I love to death.
Yeah, she was a hell of a player.
He was saying how now that the games are going to 40, the season's going to 40 games, they should play during basketball season, which I'm like, that would be the death blow to the WNBA. No,
because there is absolutely no reason why that would work, because they cannot compete. They cannot compete with the NBA. It won't happen. It just won't.
September, October.
Yeah, you got to strategize it a little better if you want to have an opportunity. But to your point, like with Angel Reese, and part of the reason why that works so well too is because when people that are invested in college athletics, a lot of times it's because it's the alma mater. So any year, regardless of whatever, you got people that are going to cling on to these teams because of their affiliation with the school. Some people just love a college because they just love a college.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, I became a Notre Dame fan growing up on the tip of Long Island, South Shore, on the tip of Queens, basically, because, St. John's was kind of close. So St. John's was good. I definitely tuned in.
Yeah.
But Notre Dame was the team to watch. I mean, I'm too far from Syracuse to claim them.
Right. Yeah, that's how I am.
Like, that's Brett's squad coming from upstate. I can understand why Brett's a Syracuse fan.
I root for Syracuse men, but I've always been an LSU fan when it comes to basketball because I wanted to go to LSU when I got out of high school.
Right.
And I always wanted to go there. And but I root for Syracuse, but I still root for the LSU.
I guess you could say I'm a Syracuse sympathizer because I remember going back to like the Mello tournament. I definitely was pulling for them.
But it's just like being a Knicks fan, dude.
Yeah, being a Knicks fan is not for the faint of heart. Being a Knicks fan, I don't suggest it to anyone if you haven't jumped on already. It's not healthy.
Don't do it.
It's not worth it.
You could be doing with your life.
Yeah, don't do it. Just don't do it. I always kid around with Zay, and I'm like, damn, bro. Magic Johnson was my favorite ball player of all time. I should have just stuck with the Lakers.
Dr. J was mine.
Yeah, right. But
again, the way they're going now, I guess I made a choice not to be a Sixer fan.
I mean, it's similar to like kids growing up in the 90s that loved Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
When Michael Jordan left the Chicago Bulls, all the Chicago Bulls fans that were like in other cities, because let's face it, my brother went to the double nickel game, and Bulls fans were flooding Madison Square Garden. These are like homegrown New Yorkers that were just addicted to Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
But when Jordan left, so did that. And there are some players polarizing like that will literally grab fans. I mean, say what you want about LeBron, he does have that effect on fans.
Mm-hmm.
That is a thing that I will give him. You got fans that are like, I don't give a damn about the team. I'm a LeBron guy. So if LeBron goes to LA, I'm supporting them. Goes to Cleveland, whatever.
But the question to you is this: where are they going when LeBron retires?
That's a great question.
Luka.
They should talk. They should take a tutorial from James Harden and talk about all that loyalty that we got going on. Last thing I want to hit on before we get out of here.
Yeah.
MLB. In your opinion, Idris, you got more teams with losing records or non-500 records than you do with winning teams. Is Major League Baseball too top-heavy? And I'm alluding to the AL East.
Yeah.
Having 5 teams that belong in the playoffs, only 4 will make it.
Yeah.
Or, it's early. I can't assume that 4 or 5 are going to make it, but it looks like it's trending in that direction.
God, I would say it is too top-heavy, but I'm not going to say it as in terms of how the NBA is, where everyone's doing a little join-up homie thing. I just think some organizations, like you look at Tampa Bay,
right?
They don't go get the high-price free agents, but they know how to build.
It's a culture thing in the organization that makes Tampa good. A lot of other small market teams or lower budget teams, winning just isn't as important, and it's been proven.
Yeah, they just want to make money.
Right.
They
want to make profits.
That's all they want. They just want to make money. They can go freaking 50 and I don't know. As long as the bottom line is they reach the bottom line. So yeah.
Good friend of the show, Sergio Rodriguez, he said it best, man. Mm-hmm. He's like our New York Yankees. He said the Yankees are phenomenal at running a business. Right. But I'm not completely sold that they're still great running a baseball club.
Right.
And
it's a business with them because Yankee gear, you got people who don't even watch baseball wearing Yankee gear.
Yeah, it's a global logo, dude. Yeah, it's a global logo
too.
But I guess what I'm getting at is I'm looking at these standings. I'm like, damn, dude, you got some terrible or middle of the road teams, and then you look at the Yankee division. Everybody's over 500. You look at Zappy's guys, the Rangers. They play, in my opinion, in the second best division in baseball. Yeah. And then who's for real. The Braves are going to be there. The Dodgers are going to find a way there.
Yeah.
And yes, our Yankees are probably gonna make some noise too. Everybody was freaking out and talking smack about them being in last. They're in the process of smashing the Blue Jays in Canada, so let's hold off on burying the Yankees.
But about the Yankees, the funny thing about the Yankees, we're in 4th place, but we don't have a bad record.
And we are that close to Toronto for 3rd now.
Right. So
tonight we could be in 3rd if and we got Cole on the hill too.
Who expected the Rays and the Orioles to come out the way they have to start their having?
Well, the Rays are bordering on historic.
Yes, I'm saying, and the Orioles right behind them.
But I wouldn't overreact just yet because we saw last year what happened to our club.
That's why I'm not worried
after
about it.
Being compared to the 98 Yankees through the first 90 games or so.
That's why I'm not worried about it.
Yankees are going to be just fine, but I will say this: the Rays are here to stay. That's not just
the Rays are doing
paper tiger. They're for real.
They're doing Ray things. That's what they do.
Absolutely. We got the June 1st cuts coming. We got about a minute. Any player that stands out. Oh, we got 2 minutes. Let me slow down. Any player that stands out to you in the NFL that is a marquee name that could be getting cut by their squad?
Saquon Barkley.
You actually think the Giants would have the audacity to cut him?
Cut him, no, but move him, maybe.
I still think, and I might be too optimistic right now.
Yeah, I don't want him to go.
No, I don't want him to go, but I must admit,
yeah,
I think that 16 is steep because the 2 guys that would be ahead of him if he got that money, Kamara and CMC are better with the hands.
Right.
Saquon is excellent in open space once he gets his hands on the football, however he got the football. But he doesn't have the hands of those 2.
Yeah, CMC, yeah. He don't need much space.
No.
Just give him the ball, he'll find space.
And listen, I'm not trying. I've said this on many a show. 14 is steep. 16 is crazy.
Yeah, 16 is crazy.
But I still have a feeling the Giants might do it because keeping him means an awful lot to them. Can they at least agree on 15? Is 15 that terrible to agree on?
Right. I hope we keep him because he's something in that offense, man.
No, for sure. And I think that, man, I'm looking forward to football for so many reasons because, man, I'm looking at these Daniel Jones haters sweating on his stats. I was like, okay, so Hurd. So total touchdowns only count if you're Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. Hurd.
Right.
So much more to talk about. We don't have enough time today, but we're going to continue this conversation.
We'll be back, y'all.
For my guy Idris, I am Richie. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Yes, sir.